Okay, so what we're gonna do today was the bane of my existence this entire weekend, the timer, where basically you have a certain amount of time to make a guess and then click enter. Um, when you describe it, it doesn't sound awful, but trying to figure it out, oh, it was bad. So we're just gonna jump into this, and yes, it would be this one. Is it this one? Okay, well. Okay, so it is this one. Okay. So we're just gonna do a little run of it just to see what it looks like right now. Hopefully there should be a home screen. If not, it's not the right one, but I have faith. Not the newest. This is before I did the timer, but after you did the home screen. Hopefully. Okay, perfect. Yes. Okay. So just a normal little thing. We figured out going off of your video, Nick, the home screen, it just shifts everything for some reason. So that's just a fun little thing going forward, but normal game, whatever. Okay. So starting this journey, I did what all of us very smart CS individuals did, and I went to Google and I did Swift UI how to implement a timer. Now I'll probably have to cover this in the next video, but a lot of the content view that I did for this timer was through a video that I watched that I have linked in my final product of the timer. But that'll be when we tackle the content view. Now we're just gonna do the model. And fun fact, when you Google how to implement a timer, all of this, it looks good, but it's very hard to break down. So I had to watch a lot of videos. So everything I'm about to go through is just a combination of everything I learned, and I really wish I could show to you all how I figured it out in terms of like what I Googled particularly, but it was just a lot of combining random stuff. Luckily, Swift UI gives us a simple, like a decent thing to look at, to where it's using a time remaining, which is basically how many seconds you have left, and then this timer variable, which through some logic, this just counts down. So those two lines are truly the most important lines to remember, especially because it just like it creates the ability to timer, and one can time with it. So yeah, we're just gonna jump into the model and go through what I did. So first things first, what I had done is I want the timer to be like to be something that is not set all of the time. So I created a variable called timer mode, which is just false for now, just to basically say you're not always going to be in timer mode, because some people don't want to be in timer mode all the time. So that's timer mode. Based off of the Google search that I had, it had the variable of time remaining. And what I did is we're going to set it for 15 seconds. Now that doesn't sound like a lot of time, but I was able to play a game with 15 seconds for each row. It gets your heart pumping, but it's kind of fun. And we can always change it later, because that's kind of like that 15 right there is quote unquote our symbolic constant where we can change it to whatever and it increases our timer. And then last but not least, timer running, we're gonna set it to false. This is just going to tell us if our timer is actually still going. So timer mode is saying if we're gonna be functioning in timer mode this game, and then timer running is going to be telling us if the timer is actually like counting down and it's not 0. So those are the variables that I used. And with that in mind, we're gonna trek on down, and by the logic of how this timer works, after you submit a row, then that 15 seconds should restart, right? So you have 15 seconds on that first row, you'll have 15 seconds on this row after you submit whatever. So if we scroll down to where we have our ability to move to the next row, if I know where I'm going. Yes, okay. Right here is our functionality to be able to move on to the next row is if else like there's no rows left. So with this, I'm gonna delete that because we don't need that. Okay. We're subtracting the rows to go to the next one. So based off of the variables that we have, if our timer mode is true, so if we're functioning in timer mode, then we need to reset time remaining to equal those 15 seconds. And then we're going to keep timer running and make it true. So it's telling, this right here is telling us that when we move to the next row, the timer is started and the time remaining we have left is 15. Now with all that being said, right now, the way you look at it, it's not actually functioning as a clock, it's just functioning as all of the variables we create to put into it. Again, I wish I could explain it better, but it's a hot mess out there on Google in terms of learning how to do a timer. But with that being said, if we move to the next row, we reset the clock. Now, if we end the game, then it's very important that we add timer running is equal to false, just so it doesn't keep the timer running or attempt to. So this is to say timer restarts, timer done. Simple, whatever. Now to the meat and the potatoes. At the very end of the model, with the time I have remaining, yes, okay. We're gonna create a few functions to basically A, start the timer overall, B, stop the timer when the game is over, either if you lose or if you win, and C, to actually make the timer decrease. So with that being said, the start timer function, which is basically just game starts, you're going to be clicking a button to be able to start the timer. We'll be creating a mutating function called stop timer that basically checks whether if our game is in timer mode. So if we are in timer mode and the game is not over, this is really important because if the game is over, you don't want that timer still going. We are going to start our timer officially to 15 and we're gonna make it running. So this function right here is more for the first row than anything. It'll get the game actually started. So this is like a one-time use. What's up?
Why did you say start timer in the comment and you named the function stop timer?
Great catch. I definitely didn't do that. Do that accidentally. Thank you. I know I was. Yeah. No, okay. Thank you. Okay. So That's a start timer. So now, with that being said, stop timer. There you go. Stop timer, same thing. Mutating function, where we are literally just stopping it, so it's not showing on the screen anymore. And with that, literally, we're just setting timer running to false. Because, I mean, it's done. Now, the last model function is the main, like, countdown function. I called it in mine, again, utility function, decrement timer, because this is literally like the timing part where we are subtracting the time remaining over a set amount of time, so then it eventually gets to 0. So it's essentially just the clock tick downwards to get to 0. So with that, if our timer mode is set, so if we're playing in timer mode and the timer is running, so it needs to be moving, and the game is not over, then we need to check if the time remaining is greater than 0. So if it's not over yet, then we can decrement this time remaining by 1. This literally just the clock tick downwards, and it's checking to see if it's greater than 0, because obviously if it's at 0 then it's done and you can't do anything about it. So if the time remaining is greater than 0, we're going to do the clock tick downwards. But if the time remaining, you could also do an else here, but if the time remaining is equal to 0, so if it's at the very end of the clock, then this is where you need to shut down the entire game. So then you set, in our model, we have a game over variable that basically tells you if the game needs to be done, and the alerts pop up. We also have a player, oh my gosh. We also have a player 1 variable that tells you if the player actually won their game. So we told it game is over. We told it that the player did not win. We also have another variable that we use called reveal solution that basically pops up with the actual solution at the top of the screen. So when the game is over, we need that reveal solution to be showed, because it's the very end. And then last but not least, going back to timer running, we just need to stop the timer. And then what from there we did is, the way ours is set up to prevent people from being able to manipulate the screen anymore, we set the current row to equal -1. We did that in the earlier function of trying to end the game. This just basically prevents them from being able to continue putting the stuff on the screen. So all that being said, okay, perfect timing in terms of the model. This is all of the magic that goes on behind the scenes. What I'll cover next class period video is how this gets paired with this Google AI timer variable that it talks about to then project onto the screen. So yeah, that's all the math behind it. But
You don't have to close everything down. I will just leave everything open that's open, and you can pick up right where you're leaving off.
okay, perfect. Can I stop the video?
Yeah.
Oh.
Probably better than I can.
It's the little, yeah.
Which
little
one?
circle.